Hello and welcome to Dynamy Career Conversations. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome my friend, colleague and business coach, Karen Murray, to our career conversations today. Karen, as I say, is a business coach. She helps solopreneurs and small businesses grow and scale their businesses. And I invited Karen on today to tell us a little bit about some of her career transitions, because she's had a really interesting variety of different careers, and just wanted to explore that a little bit more. So very warm welcome, Karen. And it'd be lovely to start with just hearing an overview of your career timeline to date, so we can just get an idea of those transitions you've been through.
Thank you, Ali, and thank you for inviting me on. This is lovely. It's really nice to spend a bit of time chatting about these things with you. So a little potted history of my life in career terms. At 15, I had a careers interview with a teacher who said, "What would you like to do?" And I said, "I really want to be a teacher," all full of, enthusiasm. And they said, "Well, that's not going to happen. You don't have the grades and we don't think you're capable of getting them. So you need to look at something else. And we think you could do secretary or hairdresser." Now, I don't really have that kind of creative, I definitely couldn't do people's hair, and nobody would want me doing their hair. And so secretary it was. And actually I started looking for jobs, and at 16 I found a job as a finance clerk, and I wasn't really suited to that kind of work. So I jumped job about every 18 months. The second job I had, so 18 months in, second job, got sacked from that one, hadn't really sorted out my work ethic. So that was a sacking. And then the next couple of jobs went okay. But eventually then I got made redundant from another job. And then I landed in a job where finally somebody kind of nurtured me and helped me to grow into something a bit more fulfilling that I enjoyed, but eventually said to me, "Are you going to do this for the rest of your life?" And I had a really visceral, "Oh no, I do not want to do this for the rest of my life." And he helped me, marvellous man called Tim Matthews, helped me to transition to going to university. Because then, even as now really, there was definitely more of a glass ceiling for women. And I think to break through, you definitely needed a degree, although that could just be my perspective. But I went my degree, doing my degree, I went to Australia for a year, and I worked for a charity. And I also met my husband, who's quite a little bit older than me. And we decided that at the end of my university, I'd have our only child. So I stayed at home with Matthew for a little while. And then I was offered a job as a consultant working for a leadership and team development company, working with behavioural profiles, which I found it completely fascinating, absolutely loved it. But I didn't love the tension with Matthew and nursery and all of that. So I stopped that after almost a year. And then it came time for Matthew to go to university. Gosh, he grew up quick. It came time for Matthew to go to school. And I had a degree then. And there was a bit of me that just rose up and thought, I wonder if now is the time I could be a teacher. And real that. And I was the 7-year-old and making registers and teaching their teddies. So, it'd been that long really. And so I did. The government brought in the graduate teacher program where you could learn on the job. And so I did that. After 5 years of being a teacher, I had another little wobble about it. I wasn't sure that head teacher, that career path, was what I really wanted. And a friend of mine was running a business, a maritime intelligence business, and said, "Look, would you sort us out? We are administratively, and help us be more strategic with our growth and support our growth with admin that we really, really need." And they were a bit of a shocking mess. And I went to do that for 3 years as Director of Business Administration. And at the end of that, the stress of it, working for somebody who had been a friend, but actually as a colleague, as a boss, was not that wasn't a helpful relationship. They were quite challenging to work with. So my mental and physical health took a real hammering over that 3 years, and by the end of it I knew I couldn't carry on. And I, in a mad moment, said, right, that's it, we need to talk about my exit strategy. And I had no strategy at all. And over a weekend I had to kind of decide what I was going to do, and I decided to start a business. And 18 months into that business, I then morphed the business into what I'm doing now, which is business coaching, where finally I felt completely settled and fulfilled, and that I'd really arrived. But along the way, there's lots of little bits that I've left out there, so not to bore everybody too much. But the thing that I learnt over that period of time, and finding what I really, really love doing now, is that nothing at all in that time has been wasted.
Wow, that is quite a story, Karen. Thank you for sharing the overview. I counted 6 transitions there. I don't know if you're aware there were that many.
No, 5. I've always clocked 5, but yes, I think the consultant one I often miss out.
Yeah. So brilliant. And a few things stand out for me, which I think would be really helpful to explore for people watching this. And the first was really the influence of, was it Tim Matthews, the person that you said kind of really was the first person to take hold and say, you know, do you want to be doing this for the rest of your life? And was almost that catalyst to send you off for university. How much of an impact do you think that had on your career?
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of people my age, and maybe from my background, the sort of opportunities that I felt were available to me were really, really limited. And so it took Tim to open my eyes to the fact that I was capable of doing more. So I think he had a real belief in me that I didn't have. And I really needed that. So is that he created a belief in me that I was capable of doing more, and he also showed me a path for how to do it. So in effect, he sort of was my first career coach. And there are a couple of other points in my working life. I think I could have got fulfillment and happiness in my work a lot sooner if I'd had a career coach, if I'd known that that was a thing and that I could do that. But he was sort of my first career coach, and it was about belief and also showing me a path, because I really thought, I can't go and do A levels, you know, I just don't want to do night school, all of that. He really showed me the path through to getting into university. So I honestly don't know if I would have gone to university if it hadn't been for him.
Wow. Yeah, I think a lot of people, if you reflect, I can certainly think of at least one person in my career that had that impact, that had that belief, almost, you know, the belief that you didn't have yourself, that enabled you to step into something. That's lovely. So one of the bits that really resonated as well as you were telling your story, Karen, where I got some goosebumps, was this idea that you'd dreamed of being a teacher and you'd taught all your TEDs, and you enthusiastically told your career advisor that you wanted to be a teacher, and were told in no uncertain terms, no, we don't think you can do that. And then I don't know how many years later, you blossom into actually being a teacher. So tell us a little bit about how that felt.
I think when you've had it, 18 years is how long it was. And I think it was always in the back of my mind that just kind of hint of doubt about who I really was and whether I could be a teacher. And I felt in my bones that I am a teacher. And I think, you know, at my core, I am a teacher. And when I walked in to the school for the first time, when I was doing my graduate teacher program, it was like coming home. I was like a kid in a sweet shop. I couldn't wait to just start doing all the things and learning how to teach and learning how children learn. And I've always been fascinated by learning. And it was just such an exciting time, both for me personally, in terms of realizing that it was never too late, even though I'd done all these different jobs and I'd had dreams of going off and taking my degree. And I didn't do a degree in teaching, I did a degree in geology and earth science. And so I had this dream of going all around the world, and that didn't pan out. Lots of things hadn't panned out. And I'd started to doubt whether I was the kind of person that could have happiness and fulfillment in a job, and whether I really was just an average Joe that needed to just be a secretary and plonk through life and, you know, find happiness elsewhere. And so this was a real coming home for me, both personally and professionally. It was a real pivotal moment of belief for me, as well as my own sort of professional development, because I, looking back, realized that this thing, that at my core, I am a teacher.
Wow. Yeah, that really, really resonates. And so you said, I think, that you were a teacher for 5 years. Is that right? So then now you'd kind of come to this point of, you know, fulfilling that childhood dream. What happened that made you transition out of being a teacher?
Well, you know, I think careers, when you're trying to find what your life thing is, you know, it can be a little bit up and down. And definitely when I was towards my sort of 4th and 5th year of teaching, I started to get a lot more responsibility and started to see at a leadership level what leading a school looked like, really. And I'd always imagined my trajectory to being head teacher. Once I'd got that belief, I really wanted to kind of move on in that career to head teacher. But I looked at what my head teacher was having to do and how they were leading and managing the school and the teachers. And I thought, I don't want to be that person. That isn't what I want to do. And I really felt quite negative to me. And I suddenly had that feeling of, oh, I've done it again. I don't know what I'm doing again. And I really wish at that moment, that's the first time that I'd really thought, when I look back, if I'd had a career coach, it would have been so beneficial to me, because what I realize now is I love what I do now. I've come full circle. But at that point, I think a career coach could have helped me to see that it was probably the environment that was wrong, and that I was looking at the job of head teacher through the lens of that one person. And although that's logical to look back now, that's hindsight. What I could have done with is somebody that could have helped me to see that at the time. And I probably would now be a head teacher somewhere, because I did love the school and learning and all of that. But it didn't work out like that. And somebody that I knew was running a maritime intelligence company. So this is 2011. Piracy was quite a big thing then, and shipping companies were really struggling with it. And he'd started this maritime intelligence company to help people manage that risk. And it was doing really well, but what wasn't doing well was the organization and the administration. So the business was running faster than the support mechanisms could keep up. And so he asked me if I would use that previous experience, those 8 years in administration, to come and get them sorted out. And so that is definitely one of the things that for me, that I think I've already said, is that nothing is ever wasted. You know, I thought that all that time that I'd been really unhappy being a secretary and doing all of that stuff, it really enabled me to fly as a director of business administration. Completely different to teaching, but just part of that skill set that I had. And I really, you know, loved getting that sorted and getting everything running on rails. It really gave me a thrill, and seeing the growth in the business. We went from 270,000 turnover to, I think it was just under 3 million actually, in 3 years, and from 5 staff to 39. And all of that growth needed this massive support mechanism behind it. And I loved putting that in place and seeing things just running smoothly.
Yeah, yeah. And I can see you smiling as you describe that, and knowing your strengths as I do, because we've done your strengths profile together. That sounds like the perfect job for your skills, what you love doing, what you're really great at. Absolutely perfect job for you. So what happened that led to your final transition from that role?
So really, the business owner kind of created an environment where a number of us found it very challenging. We were a board of directors, a team trying to do something for somebody that was just quite challenging, incredibly challenging actually. And a number of us really struggled with him. But I particularly found that the environment and this toxicity that he created around him affected my physical and mental health really seriously. And so after 3 years, by 2014, I had reached a point where it's kind of the job or me. And there were a couple of pivotal kind of moments where I thought, right, that's it. I cannot do this anymore. And I had no exit strategy. And I really didn't know what I was going to do. I think I'd been in the back of my mind, like very often, you know, in the back of my mind, I'd been thinking about what I could do to get out, but I hadn't created a plan at all. I just wrote an email at 11 o'clock one Thursday morning and said, we need to discuss my exit strategy. This is not my resignation, but we do need to start to think about what this looks like. And they were out of the office, thank goodness, because I don't know what would have happened if they'd been in the office and we'd met straight away. But they were out of office. I had the weekend, we met on the Monday. And over the weekend, basically I woke up on the Monday morning and I kind of knew, right, I'm going to start my own business. And that was that final transition.
Wow. Yeah, really powerful. And I think you've told me before how you transitioned out of that role. You know, they became your first client. And I think for a lot of people, you know, a lot of people think sometimes transitions are a bit of a cliff edge, but actually that's exactly the way I transitioned into owning my own business. Was my employer, my role had a shelf life, and my employer became my first client, and I wound down how much work I was doing with them as I wound up my other clients. The other thing that strikes me about that experience, Karen, is although the job, you know, as we said, really played to your strengths and your skills and what you enjoy, actually how important environment can be and the people that you work with. And perhaps if you're not that happy in your career, it's not necessarily that you're doing the wrong thing. It might be that you're in the wrong environment.
But what I love now is that at 48, after a whole raft of jumps and changes and bumps in my career, all of that experience has now coalesced into one thing, into business coaching. And so being a teacher at my core, I run workshops and seminars. I'm creating an online course, as you know, and as you are. I get to teach. I'm just not teaching children. And I think it was broadening my understanding of what was that core teacher. I get to help people to strategically have businesses that run smoothly, that are, you know, that work really well, that give them the life and the business that they really dreamt of when they got started. And so that's all that planning and all of that business administration experience has come back round to be really, really useful. And growing a business for somebody else, but from such rapid growth and knowing what it takes to really have that rapid growth has also come into, you know, what I do. So all of my experiences have come into this point. And I also did some leadership and team development stuff, and I use profiles in the work that I do now from time to time as well. So just nothing has been wasted.
I love that. I love that. So it's all come together. All of that experience, that diversity has all come together and made you what you are now, running Karen Murray Business Coach. I wouldn't be able to let you go without mentioning your podcast. So Karen does a weekly podcast. It's called the Smart Business Podcast. And Karen will tell you, I message her every Tuesday to say, have you uploaded it yet? Because I want to listen to it in the car on my way home. So Karen, just as we leave, could you tell people where they can download the podcast, where it's available?
So it's available on iTunes and Spotify, and you can subscribe to it there. But you can also go to my website, karenmurray.biz/podcast, and you can get a weekly email from me to let you know that there's a new episode there. And when I provide supporting material for the podcast, you get it direct to your email. You don't have to keep subscribing. So you can listen to back episodes there and also get onto my email list there.
Great. Thanks ever so much for coming on and chatting to us about your career transitions. Karen, I look forward to having you on again, where we'll dive a little bit more into business ownership, but thanks ever so much for today.
You're welcome, Ali. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.